don't do these things if you want to shoot for car brands. I know a lot of you in my audience want to pursue a path in commercial photography and shooting for car brands as a career goal. So here are 5 things that, based on my experience, haven't quite worked out, and I've learned the hard way. Hopefully, it can save you some time by hearing me out. I'm not saying that you cannot do them. I'm just saying that if I had to start over again, I definitely wouldn't do them. So here we go. Number 1, about your portfolio. Don't shoot exotic cars. This is a big one. I thought that putting exotic and fancy cars in my portfolio would make my portfolio all the more beautiful for the viewer. It actually works against me, and maybe it'll work against you. The reason being that as a photographer, my job is to make the mundane beautiful, the ordinary special, okay? If you shoot an exotic car, you may inadvertently let the car itself do most of the heavy lifting in the image for you, right? So I see this all over social media a lot, where someone takes a very ordinary shot of a Bugatti and, the whole world loves them for it. It's not them. They just shot an ordinary shot. It's the car, right? And of course, they had nothing to do with the car. They just took a picture of it. So I think potential clients may also see this, that if they see an exotic car, they may think that, well, can they really dissect the image apart and take the car away from the rest of the image and then judge that image? You got to be really careful about this. If you can somehow make a really amazing image with an exotic car in it, then that's great. But take the exotic car away, replace it with a Toyota Corolla. Is it still the same amazing image? Got to ask yourself that question. Another thing is potential customers, most of them out there are regular brands, making daily drivers. Most people buy daily drivers. That's just how the world works. Very few people are buying exotic cars out there. So more than likely, a potential customer could be just making an SUV or, something very plain. And it's your job to make that look amazing. So if you fill your portfolio with cars, shots that are just completely out of reach, they don't see the relevance when they're trying to sell a Mazda and your whole portfolio is full of like Porsches, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. So to close that gap, shoot daily drivers. And you might think that's boring. But then again, I would ask you, are you really a photographer? Or are you a social media influencer? I made a video of this just a few videos ago about the difference between the two. If you care about building a social media presence, and I would say shoot exotic cars, if that is your goal, is to become an influencer. But as a photographer, I would say that most of my jobs are shooting regular cars. And that's where the money is too, because you don't see exotic car brands having the same marketing budgets as regular car brands. Regular car brands actually spend a lot more, on the marketing of their new cars than exotic car brands do. Because exotic car brands don't need to spend that kind of money because those cars sell themselves. And often they are pre-sold out before, the public even gets them. So you've probably seen that, oh, we have the new Ferrari out. Oh, and by the way, first 2-year allotment's gone. Cars are already pre-sold completely. So why would they need to spend money advertising it? It doesn't make any sense. It's just a waste of money for them. Whereas Toyota with the new Corolla would need to sell hundreds and thousands of units in their first year, for example. I'm just making this up. And they need to make sure that they can meet those targets in the best way they can by pumping money into their marketing engine to make sure that their cars look as amazing as possible. And therefore, they will spend the money in photography to make that happen. So don't get these things mixed up. If you want to be a car photographer, you probably be shooting regular cars most of the time, not exotic ones. And that's because that's where the money is. So you got to get that. You got to accept that. You're not going to be just shooting exotic cars. If you want to shoot exotic cars, commercial photography and shooting for brands is not where you want to go. You might want to shoot, be a social media influencer or be an event photographer, for example. That's, you might shoot car shows filled with nice cars. But being a commercial photographer, in my experience, hasn't been like that at all. Number 2 is about retouching. And I would say, don't do your own retouching eventually. You might need to start off learning enough about retouching to get to a certain point where you think, well, this is what I have now, right? This is the level of retouching that I'm doing. And this is what I see out there on the amazing photographers that I aspire to become. And there's a gap. How are you going to fill that gap? Are you going to keep working towards your own retouching and closing that gap? Or another way is to start collaborating with retouchers who can already do that work, that level of work, and they can close that gap right away. It's up to you, but I find that it takes not that much time to get pretty good at retouching, and then an infinite amount of time to close that last 10%. That last 10% is really hard to achieve, and it takes a long time to get there. So you got to ask yourself, are you prepared to invest all that time into closing that 10%? Or can you just, work with someone who is already there? I learned this through when CGI first came down. And I wanted to jump the gun and get, into CGI at the early stages before it got really caught on. And I started learning, and I wanted to do it by myself until I reached a certain point where I had to decide, okay, this stuff is really hard. And it's taking a lot of time away from my photography. And I had to ask myself, do I want to invest what time I have into mastering CGI? Or should I hold back and start working with CGI artists? And so I can still do my photography. So I chose to maintain my photography path because I'm a photographer, right? That's what I do. I didn't want to become a CGI artist, nor do I want to become a retoucher, right? So I had to prioritize what I wanted to be, and I've always wanted to be a photographer first and foremost. But the important thing is that I learned enough about CGI so I can communicate effectively with CGI artists, like to know the difference between a bump map and a bitmap. If I didn't know these things, it would be difficult for me to communicate, efficiently with CGI artists. Same goes with retouching. If I say, can you lower the contrast or something, or can you fine tune the micro contrast in the shadows somewhere? If you didn't know anything about retouching, you might not be able to speak in that kind of language to a retoucher. You might have to spend a lot more time conveying the same message to them. So it just makes the communications more efficient if you already know a little bit about the subject. And in terms of retouching, I think that, again, if you want to get to that level of really high-end commercial work, start working with retouchers. Find them on Behance or Facebook. I found people on Facebook. And just send a message to them and say, this is my work. I'd love to collaborate with you on a test shoot that I'm about to do. Are you interested? And that's how you start. So that's really important. Number 3 is not to buy or invest too much into equipment. And this is a big one because there's more equipment nowadays than there has probably ever been. Okay. And I've actually chosen the opposite direction. I own very little equipment. And the reason is that I made that decision long ago when there was so much equipment coming out that I couldn't really decide what to buy. Right? I didn't want to felt locked down into one particular brand or system. And I also knew that equipment pricing is always increasing. So it was not, if that path remained the same, it would just mean that equipment will be very expensive and abundant, limitless in the future. And that's not a good place to be for someone who owns a lot of equipment, because you just might feel that you need to own more and more of it. So I chose the other path. I just got rid of everything. And now I like the choice and the freedom of choosing to rent whatever I want for any specific shoots. So some shoots don't require a fancy camera. I can just get by with a simple one. Sometimes you need higher resolution, go for medium format, but other times you don't. Sometimes you need image stabilization. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you need to prioritize video, and sometimes you don't. So I get to choose whatever I want to rent. The only downside about renting is that you need to actually do the renting. Like, you have to do the legwork in reserving the gear, picking it up, dropping it off, and all that stuff. But in terms of the actual cost of renting gear, like, figure out how much money would it cost you to rent something like a kit, a camera and a lens, versus buying that camera and lens. How many photo shoots can you do renting the gear versus buying the gear? I mean, if you spent X amount of money investing in the photo shoots themselves, what do you end up with? You might end up with a portfolio full of great imagery, which to me, I think that's the most important. As a photographer, the portfolio is the most important, not the equipment, right? How you get that amazing portfolio is really irrelevant. Whether you own the equipment or rent it, it doesn't really matter. So I would say, in terms of the equipment part, just choose the least expensive path, which is renting. If you own all that stuff, like, can you really afford to invest that money into photo shoots? Maybe not. Or if you're loaded, that's great. But most people, I would think, needs to make a choice like that. And I would say, put the money in the photo shoots, not the equipment. And number 4 is loosely related to the last one, which is, don't be too technical. I think technique is something that can be learned, studied, copied. It's almost a commodity, right? Because anyone can access it. You just have to put your head down, study it, learn it, and then you'll have it. But technique is always, in my mind, a result of the creative. So the creative is actually the most important, because that comes from within each artist. And that can't be really copied until that artist actually turns that idea into something tangible, like an image, right? So I think that the creative dictates the technique, not the other way around. I see some people, especially on social, they prioritize how-tos and technical stuff. And I'm thinking, have they missed something? Yeah, they've missed the creative part. You start with the creative, which dictates how to technically execute that creative, not the other way around. You don't buy a lens and then think, oh, what can I do with this lens? It's more like you have a creative idea, and then you're like, oh, this lens will be perfect to execute that idea. That's how I've learned to do things, is creative dictates the technical, not the other way around. And the last one is, again, loosely related to the previous one, which is don't be too technical. And that is not to follow social media trends. Now, you might think the keyword is social media trends here. My keyword is actually follow, which again kind of harks back to what I just said previously, that following is never a good thing. But I understand that following on social media can be good, because someone comes up with a trend that goes viral. If you follow it, you will also ride that same wave and possibly go viral, and therefore grow your channel, grow your followers, whatever, at the same time. Doesn't really quite work in photography. So if your world, revolves around social media, totally different story. I understand that. Follow trends, okay? But if you're a photographer as an artist seeking to, offer unique value to your clients, following is probably like the last thing you want to do. If someone comes up to me, like I had some consulting clients show me images that they've seen that are, I guess, kind of trendy, in the commercial car photography world. And they say, I want to do this shot. I'm like, why do you want to do this shot? The OG creator of that shot has already done it. And they are 10 steps ahead of you because they've already done this and you're just starting now copying them. Like, you're always going to be behind them. There's no point. The other thing is, they've already done it. If you do it now, you'll just be seen as a copier. Why would anyone hire a copier? They can just go directly to the OG creator and hire them instead because, they have obviously got more experience doing that kind of shot than you have. The rebuttal to that would be, well, I can do it cheaper. And like, that is just the worst answer. Obviously, you want to copy someone who probably charges a premium. Maybe they're a famous car photographer, and you can do the same shot for less for a client. I don't think I can see some clients probably jumping on that, but I'm not sure if that's the clients that you want to have, because the type of client that wants to take advantage of that kind of proposal would be the same client that prioritizes money over quality, and they will find as many ways possible to save the money on your, at your expense. Whether it's not for this job, it will be down the line. There are bad clients out there, people. There are tons of bad clients out there. Clients that will prioritize, they don't care anything about you. They don't care if you make a profit. They're not the type to build good relationships with. They see you as a commodity, like buying a can of Coke. The cheapest place to buy it, the better, because to them, it's all the same product. Tons of them out there. So pick and choose your clients carefully. And I think following social media trends overall only works if you want to grow on social media, but still not in the best way. Because I think the people who come up with, who set the trends are the ones who always win. The ones who follow the trends may feel safer because they can use the OG's creation as a yardstick to see if they work or not. And then if it works, if they go viral, then they can copy. But other than that, there's really no benefit in kind of following anything. So keep that in mind. So thanks for hearing me out today. I would love to hear your feedback in terms of what you think I'm missing perhaps on the list, or things that you've experienced yourself. Let me know down below, and I'll see you next time.